Welcome to The Jeweler's View. I'm Courtney Gray. I've spent nearly 30 years in this industry, running schools, doing custom work, coaching, consulting, and working with makers at all stages. Over time, I've started to see the patterns, the things that actually move a creative career forward, and the things that can quietly hold it back. I built this podcast to cut through the noise, less time in your head or down the research rabbit hole, and more time building something real. Let's get into it. Okay, so you spend 20 minutes trying to photograph a new ring. The lighting is wrong. Stone refuses to cooperate. The metal reflects everything except what you want people to see. And eventually you get the photo posted. You share it, you wait, 3 likes, 1 comment. One of those likes is your aunt or your partner, and suddenly you're asking yourself, is anybody even seeing my work? Welcome back to The Jeweler's View. I'm Courtney Gray, and today I want to talk about visibility, because every week I hear some version of the same question. Should I be on TikTok? Do I need Pinterest? Should I be doing shows? Do I need a newsletter? Should I be pursuing galleries or wholesale? And underneath every one of those questions is the same concern. What if nobody is seeing my work? A few years ago, I was working with a maker who was completely overwhelmed. She had convinced herself that she needed to be everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, email, blogs, video, stories, reels, all of it. And every time she opened her laptop, she felt behind. There was always one more thing that she wasn't doing, one more platform that somebody else was telling her that she needed. The problem? She was spending so much energy trying to become visible that she barely had time left to make the work that she wanted people to see or buy in the first place. So I asked her a simple question. Where have your last 5 sales come from? Not where you hope they'll come from. Not where some marketing expert says they should come from. Where did they actually come from? So she started listing them, right? A former coworker, a friend of a friend, the veterinarian, someone she'd met through a local organization, a repeat customer. And not one came from the platform that she was spending the most time worrying about. That kind of changed everything in how she was looking at this, because visibility isn't about being everywhere. It's about being where people are already paying attention. Sometimes those places are not nearly as glamorous as we'd like them to be. And I think social media has created this strange idea that strangers matter more than relationships. That growth only really counts if it comes from someone who has never heard of us before. But when I look back over 25 years in this industry, that's rarely been true. When I owned the jewelry school, some of our best students came through referrals, word of mouth. A friend had brought a friend. A former student told a coworker. Someone took a jewelry class years ago and finally came back. Sometimes people would walk through the door and tell me they had been following us for years. Yes, years. Meanwhile, I had no idea they were even paying attention. They weren't commenting. They weren't emailing. They weren't raising their hand. They were simply watching. And that's something I think we forget. Visibility and engagement are not the same thing. Someone can see every post you make and never leave a comment. Someone can read every newsletter and never reply. Someone could visit your website 10 times before they ever contact you. In fact, most people do. Think about your own life. How many businesses have you quietly followed before making a purchase, before buying? How many artists have you admired before collecting their work? How many podcasts have you listened to before subscribing? By the way, if you're not subscribing, be sure to hit that button. We all do this. We observe, we pay attention, we wait, and then one day the timing is right. The problem is that from the business owner's perspective, all that waiting looks like nothing. We assume silence means nobody noticed. We assume low engagement means low interest. We assume a lack of immediate results means something isn't working. And that's where many makers get themselves into trouble, because they abandon things before they've had enough time to work. They post consistently for maybe 3 weeks. Nothing happens. They stop. They send 2 newsletters. Nobody replies. They stop. They do 1 show and sales are slower than expected. They stop. And then 6 months later, they're starting over somewhere else. Not because the first thing failed, because they never stayed with it long enough to find out. This is one of the reasons I often tell students inside Transform that visibility is not a marketing problem. It's usually a consistency problem. And this is not because you're lazy or you're doing something wrong. It's because they're exhausted. They're trying to maintain 6 different visibility channels instead of building 1 or 2 strong ones. And the truth is, most small creative businesses really don't need to be everywhere. They need a home base, a place where people can reliably find them. And then they need a few paths that lead people there. That's it. For some people, that's Instagram and a website. For others, it's shows and an email list. For some, it's galleries and referrals. I've even had students whose strongest visibility channel was their personal Facebook page. And honestly, why not? Who cares? Those people already know you. They already trust you. They already care about what happens in your life. Why are we so eager to abandon the audience we already have in pursuit of one that we haven't built yet? That's a question worth sitting with, because visibility isn't really about reaching the most people. It's about reaching the right people, often enough that they remember you. I want to leave you with a simple exercise. Take a piece of paper and write down your last 5 sales, or at least the last 5 people who inquired. And then ask yourself, how did each one find me originally? Who introduced them? What platform were they on? What relationship existed before they purchased? Look for patterns, not assumptions, patterns. You may discover that your business is already telling you where your visibility efforts belong. The clues are usually there. We're just too busy chasing the next thing to notice them. So if you've been wondering whether anybody is seeing your work, here's what I'd tell you. More people are paying attention than you realize. The real question isn't whether they're seeing it. The real question is whether you're making it easy for them to keep finding you. Until next time, I'm Courtney Gray. This is The Jeweler's View. And if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and do so. I put one of these out every week, and I'd love to have you here with me. Onward and upward. See you next week. I'm glad you're here. This path takes a lot, especially when you're building something of your own. If you want to go deeper, I share key takeaways and additional teaching through my email list at CourtneyGrayArts.com. Keep going. This part matters. I'll see you next week.
A night of singing bowls and stories untold. Yeah, here's to the dreams and how we make them, to howling at the moon, to worries and loss, sitting in solitude, feeling a little bit pissed off. Here's to the grace we have awakened.